they were involved with another person. Not because you were not good enough, not because you were easy to replace, but because something inside them was not prepared to face what was genuine. And now they carry a message they can no longer ignore or keep hidden inside. What they want to say is not easy, and it is not comfortable, because while they were physically present somewhere else, emotionally a part of them never fully left you. And that truth has now become impossible for them to deny any longer. Have you ever felt like a connection never truly ended? Even when everything on the surface said it did, something stayed unfinished and quietly present in the background of your mind all along. That is where they have been living. Not in the past exactly, but in a space where truth was delayed and not erased completely. Because real connection does not disappear. It waits, it remains, and eventually it asks to be seen clearly, without any doubt. If you want the full truth about why they came back with this message after being with someone else, hit like right now. They chose what felt safe instead of what felt true. They moved toward what was familiar rather than what was quietly calling from deep inside them. They held on to what was easy to avoid instead of what could have actually changed them in a real and lasting way. In doing this, they convinced themselves that comfort was the same as peace. Even though something within them kept questioning that choice, they stayed where things felt predictable, where emotions did not demand too much, and where they could remain in control without much effort. But deep down, there was always a quiet awareness that something more meaningful had been left behind. Something that required more courage than they were ready to give at that time in their life. And once that understanding began to settle within them, it did not fade away or disappear over time. It stayed with them in the moments they could not run from or distract themselves from easily. It showed up in quiet evenings, in the pauses between conversations, and in the space where their thoughts became louder than anything else around them. The feeling did not ask for attention, but it refused to be ignored. It remained present in a steady and quiet way, reminding them that something inside had been left unresolved for too long. No matter how much they tried to move forward, this awareness stayed behind their actions, quietly shaping how they felt about everything in their days. In the silence between conversations, and in the repetition of days that slowly started to blend into one another, they began to notice how little life was truly asking from them at that point. Everything felt manageable, but also limited, as if growth had been replaced with routine. They started to see how much of their real self they had been holding back, just to keep things simple and unchallenging. They avoided deeper questions, avoided stronger emotions, and avoided situations that might challenge who they were deep inside. Over time, this created a sense of distance within themselves, a feeling that they were present in their own life, but not fully engaged with it. What they had with the other person may have appeared stable on the surface, but it did not carry the same depth, meaning, or emotional weight as before. What they shared with you had something different, something that reached deeper and stayed longer in their heart. And things that are truly meaningful do not disappear just because someone walks away from them for a while. They remain present in the background of the mind, waiting quietly to be acknowledged. They do not demand attention, but they do not fade either. Over time, these feelings begin to rise again, not in dramatic ways, but in subtle and steady reminders that something important had once existed between you. At some point, they stopped pretending to themselves. Not in one sudden realization, and not through a dramatic moment of clarity, but slowly and honestly, in a way that felt both uncomfortable and real at the same time. They admitted that they were never fully alive in the place they chose to stay in during that period. Something important had always been missing, even if they tried not to see it clearly. They recognized that no matter how much they tried to convince themselves they had moved forward, a part of them was still emotionally unfinished with you. This awareness did not come with ease. It came with a quiet honesty that forced them to look at their own decisions without excuses or hiding. Comment still here if you have ever felt a connection never truly ended, even when they were with someone else. They came to understand that they never truly gave that connection a fair chance. Not because it lacked meaning or value, but because it required courage they did not have at the time. The kind of courage that asks a person to show up without protection, to face the possibility of rejection, to allow themselves to feel deeply without knowing the outcome ahead. It meant risking emotional pain, risking change, and risking becoming someone different because of what they felt inside. Instead of stepping into that space, they stepped away from it, choosing safety over growth at that moment. Even though a part of them knew what they were leaving behind, that awareness now carries a message they could not express before. It is not perfect. It is not carefully shaped. And it is not asking for sympathy from anyone. It simply exists as a quiet and steady truth within them that they cannot ignore. They understand now. They see what you represented in their life with new eyes. They recognize that what they were avoiding was never truly you, but the parts of themselves they were not ready to face honestly. And that realization shifts something deep inside them in a lasting way. It changes how they see their past, their choices, and their understanding of what truly mattered most. It is not a loud change, but it is a permanent one. Because once a person clearly sees their own avoidance, they cannot unsee it. They cannot return to pretending that nothing happened or that it did not matter at all. Whether they choose to reach out or remain silent, something inside them has already changed. The illusion they were living in has broken apart completely, and that collapse brings both discomfort and clarity. It forces them to sit with the truth of what they avoided and to accept the emotional weight that comes with that awareness. There is no easy way to escape it once it becomes clear. What you need to hold on to is this truth above everything. None of this was ever a reflection of your worth or your value as a person. It was always a reflection of their emotional readiness and their ability to face what they felt at that time. Type yes if you want me to reveal the real reason they could not fully leave you emotionally. You were not replaced by someone better in any way. You simply crossed paths with someone who did not yet have the capacity to meet you where you were standing. And now they are standing in the result of their own choices, carrying the weight of everything they avoided, delayed, and left unresolved. Whether they speak about it or not, that is the real impact for them. Not a dramatic return, not an immediate confession, but the truth, slowly settling into their awareness over time. You were real, and real connections leave a mark that cannot be erased by convenience, distraction, or avoidance of any kind. They want you to understand that their choices were never about your value, but about their own fear and their level of emotional readiness at the time. The hesitation, the distance, and the inconsistency all came from fear, not from a lack of understanding of what you meant to them. And now that fear has been faced, it has left them more aware, more honest, and more conscious of the consequences of how they handled something that truly mattered. They are carrying a clarity that feels heavy, undeniable, and impossible to ease with excuses or simple explanations any longer. In that clarity, they can now clearly see what they ignored, what they delayed, and what can no longer be reversed or changed easily. They see the effect their silence, inconsistency, and avoidance had on someone who truly deserved full presence, honesty, and real effort from them. This awareness does not come with comfort. It comes with a steady understanding that stays with them without rushing. It does not fade away quickly. Instead, it sits quietly within them, reminding them of every moment they chose distance over truth and hesitation over honesty. This is not a request or a plea for anything to return to how it was. It is not asking for reconciliation or another chance. It is simply an admission, a quiet form of understanding that only comes after reflection and personal growth. They recognize the courage you showed just by being emotionally open, by asking for honesty, and by choosing to show up fully in a connection that deserved nothing less, and by refusing to accept half effort or unclear attention from them. And in that recognition comes both respect and regret at the same time within them. Respect for your honesty and strength, and regret for not being brave enough to meet you at that same level when it truly mattered most. That regret is not loud or dramatic in any visible way. It is quiet, internal, and always present beneath the surface of their thoughts. It appears in late-night moments, in quiet times when they cannot distract themselves, and in memories they try but cannot fully push away. It continues to remind them of the chances they let pass, the honesty they avoided, and the connection they did not protect when they had the chance. This feeling does not shout for attention, but it never completely disappears from their mind. It stays steady and constant, shaping how they now understand their past and the decisions they made during that time in life. What they want you to understand most clearly is that this is not about missing comfort or simple familiarity alone. It goes much deeper than that. It is about finally understanding what a real connection feels like, and realizing that something genuine cannot simply be replaced or ignored easily. In every decision they made, there was still a part of them that remained aware of you all along, aware of the truth they were not expressing out loud at the time. That awareness never left completely. It only grew stronger over time, slowly turning into a clarity they can no longer deny or avoid in their daily life. They are not asking for forgiveness, and they are not trying to force any decision from you at all. They are simply offering the truth of their realization, something they were not able to express before this point. This is their truth, presented in a quiet and honest way without performance or exaggeration of any sort. It comes from someone who finally sees what was in front of them all along, and now carries that understanding with full responsibility. There is no attempt to rewrite the past or make it seem different from what it was. Share this with someone who is still waiting for clarity from a person who chose safety over truth. There is only an effort to acknowledge what was real and what it truly meant to them. The message is not about changing what has already happened. It is about fully accepting it without running away. They are no longer running from the emotions they once avoided for so long. They are no longer dividing their attention or hiding behind silence and distraction like before. They have faced their hesitation, their emotional distance, and their fear of being vulnerable with themselves. And through that process, they have come to realize something important and clear in their mind. The person they hesitated to fully show up for was always you, without question. And that truth now carries a strong emotional weight that cannot be ignored any longer. That realization has reshaped how they understand connection, honesty, and emotional presence in their life. They are different now in awareness. Even if the past cannot be changed, even if they never act on what they feel, the understanding they carry will not disappear. It remains because they now see you clearly, not as an option, not as something replaceable, but as a meaningful connection they were not ready for at the time. That truth stays with them and shapes their thoughts going forward. What comes next is no longer guided by confusion or uncertainty for them. It becomes about conscious choice, your clarity, and your ability to stay grounded in your own truth and self-respect moving forward. Take a moment and sit with this fully. Allow yourself to feel the weight of what has passed and what may still be possible ahead in your journey. Trust your instincts, your inner voice, and the strength you have developed over time through your own experiences. You already know what feels right for you deep inside. You already understand what you deserve. And now, with full awareness of both their growth and your own, the next step can be taken with clarity, calm, confidence, and steady self-respect. On the surface, someone may appear fully committed elsewhere or focused in another direction in life completely. But emotionally and psychologically, a part of them can still remain connected to something they never fully understood or resolved before. This is not about simple betrayal, but about the deeper and more complex nature of human attachment, fear, and personal growth that develops slowly over time. What makes this situation powerful is the role that fear plays in shaping decisions that people often do not fully understand while making them. Fear quietly influences choices more than most people are aware of in their lives. Fear of closeness, fear of being vulnerable, fear of losing control, and even fear of facing one's own emotional truth can lead someone to avoid what they truly feel inside. In those moments, they may move toward other connections not because of real love, but because of comfort, distraction, or the need to avoid deeper feelings completely. At the same time, the person they were deeply connected to remains present in their thoughts. Even if they do not speak about it openly, that presence continues through memories, quiet comparisons, and unspoken thoughts that stay with them. It shapes their emotional world in ways that are not always visible from the outside, but are strongly felt within their heart. Regret becomes a meaningful part of this process when someone avoids emotional truth or delays a real connection. They eventually begin to feel the result of that avoidance. This realization often arrives quietly during moments of stillness, or when there are no distractions left to escape from their own thoughts. It is not about simply missing someone on a surface level. It is about clearly seeing the choices that were made, the fear that guided those choices, and the missed chance to fully value a real emotional connection that existed. That understanding does not come quickly or easily. It builds over time, becoming stronger with each moment of honesty they allow. And once it is fully seen, it stays, shaping how they move forward and how they understand what truly matters in life. Comment real if this message just reached you deeply and woke up old feelings. This kind of regret is powerful because it brings a person face to face with accountability, humility, and real inner growth that lasts. It does not allow easy escape or quick distraction from the truth. Instead, it asks them to look directly at their own choices and the impact those choices created on others. At the same time, growth is never one-sided or limited to one person alone. In this journey, while one individual is learning to face fear, accept responsibility, and understand emotional truth more clearly, the other person is also changing in their own way and with their own strength. They are learning to set stronger limits to protect their peace and to value their self-respect more deeply than before, even when it requires distance for a time. This creates a situation where both individuals continue to grow, often at different speeds, but still moving in similar directions internally. When clarity finally arrives for one person, the other may already have developed a deeper sense of strength, awareness, and emotional understanding. This shift ensures that any future interaction, if it ever takes place, is no longer based on confusion, emotional need, or uncertainty at all. Instead, it becomes rooted in conscious choice, self-awareness, and emotional maturity. The dynamic changes because both individuals are no longer standing in the same place they once were, even if the memory of that connection still exists within them. Even when someone appears to move forward on the surface, parts of their emotional world can remain connected to what was never fully understood or resolved. That original connection continues to influence how they see happiness, meaning, and emotional fulfillment in their life. This is why their outer behavior can sometimes feel disconnected from their internal reality. There is often a quiet contrast between what they show to others and what they actually feel inside their heart. This contrast is not always intentional, but it becomes more noticeable over time as awareness begins to grow and questions begin to surface naturally. At the same time, the person who once asked for honesty and emotional presence is also growing and changing. They are not standing still or waiting in the same place any longer. They are becoming more grounded, more self-aware, and more certain of their own value. They are learning to trust themselves, to listen to their instincts, and to move forward with greater clarity every step of the way. This growth ensures that if any reconnection ever happens, it will not come from emotional dependence or confusion, but from a place of strength, balance, and clear understanding of what truly matters most. This shared growth becomes important because it protects both individuals from repeating the same patterns that once created distance between them. It allows any future interaction to be based on awareness instead of confusion, and on maturity instead of emotional instability.